Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1110B, and today's date is October 25th, 2016, and the title of the episode is Welcome to the Seventh Floor, the Shadow Government, a Government Inside a Government. Now, before I get started here, I just want to make an announcement. I placed an interview with Rob Kirby on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight, and you'll see the video there. Or you can go to x22report.com, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, you'll see the video there. Or you can go to newsentinel.com, same thing, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, and you can play the video there. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the last couple of weeks we've been talking about Obamacare and how these premiums are going to skyrocket. Well, it has been confirmed by the Kaiser Foundation that Obamacare premiums are expected to increase on average of 25% nationally. Now, that means in some places we're going to see premiums skyrocket about 50, 60, 90%. And when we look at this, we see the 10 hardest hit states will see premiums increase on average of 62%. Arizona is officially the biggest loser, with rates in Phoenix soaring to 145%. Remember when Obama told us that this was going to be affordable, that people are going to be able to shop and find that insurance that they need, and you'll be insured? Well, he has made this so completely impossible now that people are dropping out left and right. They're predicting over 1 million people are going to drop Obamacare. The only people that are in Obamacare right now are those people who've never had insurance that gets subsidized by the government, which means they don't have to pay anything. Nothing against these people, but those people found a way in, and the government subsidizes them, and they pay very little bit or nothing at all. You also have those people that lost their insurance, and they had to get insurance no matter what because they had it before. But now many of those people are saying, this is getting too expensive. I can't even afford this. Those people who are caught in the middle, guess what? They just can't afford it. They're taking the penalty. So this did not help the everyday person. It helped a very, very select few. But this entire bill that was passed by our Congress is a disaster for the people. And guess what? Obama will not admit to it. They're continually out there saying that, don't worry, it's going to get better, it's going to get better. Well, so far, after all these years, it's gotten worse and worse. They have no proof it's going to get better. They told us it was going to be fantastic. That it's going to be incredible. He's going to revolutionize the healthcare industry. Well, he did for the health insurance companies, not for the people. Now, coming out of the Rutherford Institute, John Whitehead, he is showing that it doesn't matter who we elect to be the next president, because the government here in the United States is not run by the president. It's not run by Congress. It's really run by the shadow government. And the shadow government represents the hidden face of government that has no respect for the freedom of the people. So it doesn't matter really which candidate wins the presidential election, because the shadow government, it is here to stay. And recent documents that were produced by the FBI reveal that this shadow government, which is also referred to as the Seventh Floor Group, is going to play a part, of course, as we know, in who will win the White House this year. They will manipulate it as much as they possibly can to get the person they want in. And this new individual, depending on who it is, if they're able to do it this time, they will inherit not one, but two shadow governments. The first shadow government is referred to as COG, or continuity of government. And it's made up of unelected individuals who have been appointed to run the government in the event of a catastrophe. And what we mean by that is there could be a terrorist attack, a natural disaster, an economic meltdown, and it brings out this form of shadow government. But the second shadow government is referred to as the deep state. That poses the greater threat to freedom and our rights. These are unelected government bureaucrats, corporations, contractors, button pushers, you name it. They're behind the scenes. They are a government within a government. This is the real reason why people have no real control over our government and what they do. Because there is a shadow system running behind the scenes that are actually calling the shots. They give us the illusion that we, the people, are deciding. But guess what? We are not. And the deep state, well, they operate according to their own compass. They decide what is going to happen. And we can see right now that this deep state, they are comprised of militarized police. They are comprised of federal law enforcement agencies, which combined allow them to establish themselves as a standing army. The fusion centers and spy agencies that have created a surveillance state and turned all of us into suspects, that is part of the deep state. The courthouses, the prisons that allowed corporate profits to take precedence over due process, that is part of the deep state. And the military empire with its private contractors and defense industry that's bankrupting the nation right now is also part of the deep state. And there are certain key programs and policies that have been pushed by the shadow government that will continue no matter who is elected. A domestic surveillance state, global spying, TSA searches, the NDAA, militarized police, SWAT team raids. The deep state also controls Wall Street. This is fascism in its most covert form, hiding behind public agencies and private companies to carry out its dirty work. And we can see right now that until we get rid of this shadow government that is made up of all of this, these unelected individuals, we don't have the ability right now to take back the country, no matter who is elected. The only difference that it will make is that if the candidate they want is brought into the White House and is elected, they have the ability to do what they need to do, and that individual is not going to question anything. They're going to carry out the orders. Trump, on the other hand, if he gets into office, he'll most likely fight the system, which means they're going to get rid of him if they even allow him into the office. But they're going to continue on because they'll just bring up the next person, which is the vice president, and they'll say, listen, you do what we say or you're gone too. And we can see that it doesn't matter who's in office, because whatever they're going to do, they're just going to do it. The only thing that might be different is the time that it takes for them to do it. But it will get done. And our mission as we the people, it is to get rid of the shadow government, the central banking system, of all these unelected individuals that are calling the shots. Because if we don't do this, we know what's happening. The system is going to collapse. We're going to be heading to war. And these individuals believe they're going to stay in power. they're not going to give it up. And of course, they're going to be sending everyone else to fight the war for them. So we as a people around the world, we're going to eventually need to make a stand. Now, we know the United States government central bankers, they like to have regime change. Any way they possibly can, they like regime change. And we see it happening in Brazil. We're seeing it happen in Venezuela, because right now they're trying to remove Maduro, and the Venezuela's opposition-dominated parliament, well, they are going to begin the impeachment process on President Nicolas Maduro. Early in the day, the lawmakers convened for a special debate on the constitutionality of Maduro's coup against democracy, and we can see they're making their move to remove this individual. And we understand why, because the United States government central bankers have been trying for quite a while to get into Venezuela, trying to get into Brazil, to break up the BRICS system, capture the oil, place the dollar on the oil, because we have to remember the central banking system, they need to continually spread their debt. They need to capture more of the market, which has to deal with oil, to keep this entire system propped up for them. We see out in the Philippines, President Duderte, well, he has plans to do away with the Enhanced Cooperation Defense Agreement, and he's saying that he's going to limit U.S. access to 5 military bases in the Philippines. And we can see that Duterte is playing hardball with the United States, and the Assistant Secretary of State, Daniel Russell, warned Duterte that he was creating a climate of uncertainty and insisted there was growing international concern over his government, which means that the United States is going to look to replace him. Regime change. Ron Paul was out there. He was saying that, yes, it looks like they're going to try to replace Duterte, because the United States needs the strategic location of the Philippines. They're encircling China, because eventually we understand what's going to happen, because we've been watching, we've been tracking all the military movements, assets, troops across the world. And the United States has been preparing for a very long time to put everything into place for that one moment when they declare war. We see out in Ukraine, things are really starting to heat up. There's about 3,160 violations of the ceasefire during the past week. And we can see right now that Kiev attended the peace talks in Berlin only to escalate the war in Donbass, because while they were at the peace talks, the ceasefire talks, trying to talk about the Minsk agreement, they've been bringing up mercenaries up to the contact line. And we're seeing about a 133% increase in bombings in the last 2 weeks. Kiev has sent about 80 French and Italian mercenaries to the front line. And we can see right now there's even more mercenaries heading to the front line. There's 40 Polish mercenaries. 100 extremist gunmen from the right sector are moving into this area. The United States right now has extended the no-fly zone over Crimea and eastern Ukraine, which means that there can be no U.S. civil aviation flights over this area. They're afraid of a plane getting hit from a weapon. And the extension takes effect on October 27th, and it will be in effect for 2 years until October 27th, 2018. So we can see already they're putting everything into place to start this offensive. They've had enough, and they tried the Minsk agreement. Kiev didn't abide by it, so they said, you know something, it's time to move forward. All we need right now is a false flag, and we can see it's heading in that direction. Out in Iraq, it looks like the United States has finished the air base that they've been building in Iraq, and for the first time, a C-130 jet has landed. It is a C-130 Super Hercules jet that landed on the base, and we can see they're going to be bringing in supplies. They're also building the same type of bases in Syria where they can handle C-130s coming in, and we can see right now all of this is to keep control of the Middle East. They're not giving up. Their goal is to remove Assad, keep control of the Middle East, keep those pesky people back, and keep the puppet government in power. We see right now that the U.S. government central bankers are getting ready to go into Raqqa, a major offensive, and we see right now that Russia is not invited in this offensive, which not really coming as a surprise to anyone, because we know what this is all about. This is about replacing the Islamic State in this area with the moderate rebels. And if Russia is involved, guess what? Russia is going to actually hit the Islamic State. They're not going to let them morph into the moderate rebels and say, we just had this terrible battle, and look, we just got Raqqa. So we can see right now, at this point, the United States and Russia are never going to be flying missions together. They're on the opposite ends. The United States government central bankers, they're using the terrorists, they control the terrorists, they want Assad gone. Russia has been invited in by Syria, and they're removing the terrorists from that country. Lavrov is very angry. Sergei Lavrov from the Russian Foreign Ministry. He is saying that the United States promised a year ago, they pledged to separate the moderate rebels from the terrorists. And as so far, they haven't done anything. And he comes up with this incredible point. Maybe the moderate rebels are not moderate at all. That's exactly right. There are no moderate rebels. They're all terrorists. This is why they cannot separate them. Back in July, NATO promised that they were going to be bringing in their AWACS planes to help the U.S.-led coalition against the fight inside of Syria. And we see NATO surveillance planes have flown their first mission in support of the coalition. Now, are they really going after the Islamic State? No, they're not. They're giving them intelligence of what is happening in the area, where the Russian planes are, where the Syrian planes are. And we can see right now that the situation is escalating in Syria. Actually, we're hearing word that the Pentagon is worried that Russia might shoot down a U.S. plane. And it seems like they're foreshadowing right now of something that they would want, because this would allow them to get into war. Now, can they use some type of false flag where they say, oh yes, Russia did hit a plane? Yes, they can have one of the terrorist groups fire their advanced weapons that they're bringing in that can take down a jet plane and say it was Russia. Now, of course, Russia's going to deny this, or they could say it was Syria, which would make more sense, and they can go right after Syria at that point, which then would lead to war with Russia. But we can see right now that they are preparing and getting ready for what is happening. The UK right now, they're going to be training the moderate rebels once again. They suspended the program, but it looks like that is back on track. The UK Defense Ministry is going to be sending 20 UK military trainers into Syria to start training the terrorists. Of course, they call it the moderate rebels, but we know for a fact that these are terrorists. The UK and France, well, they want UN sanctions on Syria for the Syrian gas attacks. And we can see right now they're continually trying to put pressure on Syria. Now, we have to remember, all these refugees and everything that is happening out in the Middle East, it is all because of the United States government central bankers and the coalition forces. They place sanctions on the countries. Supplies cannot come in. Money does not flow. War is happening. And then there are refugees because people do not want to stay in a country where there's constant war. And we're seeing this in Yemen. We're seeing it in Libya. We're seeing it in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria. So when we look at the situation right here, we see that this whole entire thing was created by the United States and the coalition forces. We see the National Intelligence Director, James Clapper, says that it looks like it might not be a state actor who cyber attacked many of the sites in the Northeast, actually shut down the domain system with the DDOS attack. And he's saying, listen, we're not going to rule out that it state actors. We're just looking at the preliminary data. We're just looking at the information. And right now, it doesn't seem like it's a state actor, but it could be. we're not going to rule it out completely. So they're already preparing the public that it could be a state actor as they look through all the data. Now, what's very interesting about this is they haven't really come out and said one way or another, because they have to look through the information. Now, all the other times, they came up with the idea that, yes, it was Russia right off the bat. Here they're waiting because they need to see what the polls are, what people are thinking, what they're doing before they go ahead and do this. This just shows you that they have no clue who really does a cyber attack. It shows you that it depends on how they want to use the propaganda. Because if you go back to Sony, a couple days later, they knew exactly who it was, North Korea. When with the DNC and the election system, they knew exactly who it was. It was Russia. No, they didn't. Because a state actor, they're much, much more advanced than a non-state actor. They have capabilities far beyond what a non-state actor can do. And even when it is a non-state actor, it's still very difficult to track down who actually did something. And it doesn't take a day, 2 days. It would take months, a year to really investigate. It would take a lot of manpower to do this. And guess what? They're not going to waste their time. They know it's not Russia. They know it's none of these countries. Most of the time, it's an inside job to create propaganda, to create fear, to make everyone believe that we have a problem. And we can see as we get closer and closer to these elections, and depending on how the polls go, remember, they want the early ballots because this way they can see how the people are thinking. If they're going in the direction they do not want, they are prepared and ready to say these cyber attacks are from Russia. And they will announce it. If it is going in their direction, or it's close enough, they have the ability to manipulate. And they don't need to do that. Because if they have the candidate they want and they can manipulate, they don't want anyone to question that these results are not the true results. So they're not going to say anything. But we can see right now as we get closer and closer, things are really going to develop. Now, out in Turkey, we see the U.S. State Department has updated its Turkey travel warning on September 23rd of 2016. And they came out just 3 days ago, and they posted another warning saying that U.S. citizens, well, they might be in the middle of a terrorist attack, kidnappings, and everything else in Istanbul, where they're saying that if you are a U.S. citizen, you might want to leave this area. Now, this tells me that something is going to happen at this point. And every time they come out with a warning, something does happen. They came out with a warning for Turkey. We had the coup. Same time, all of a sudden, Turkey started to go into Syria. The United States was continually bombing inside of Syria. So we can see right now from this warning that they are prepared and ready to go to the next level. Because they realize they have to. Because sooner than later, Russia and Syria are going to clear the country of terrorists. The United States government and their moderate rebels, their terrorist groups, they're going to continually lose ground. So it looks like they're prepared and ready to do something, and most likely it's going to happen very soon. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.